Sunday used to be our day. No alarms. No laptops. Just coffee in mismatched mugs and Riley in my hoodie, pretending to like sports while scrolling her phone. I used to believe those little routines meant something, that consistency was a sign of safety. Now I realize routine can also hide decay. That morning started off simple. Riley was up early, earlier than usual, hair done. Makeup subtle but too polished for a casual Sunday. She floated around the kitchen, humming as she poured oat milk into her coffee and posted a selfie to her workout group chat. I asked where brunch was, and she told me it was in Eastwood, some new organic cafe they were all obsessed with. I didn't think twice. She kissed me on the cheek and left. Then she forgot her sunglasses. Normally, I would have just left them on the entry table. But something in me, maybe curiosity, maybe intuition, maybe something darker, made me grab my keys instead. I didn't text. I didn't warn her. I just drove. The cafe was tucked into a side street between a yoga studio and a boutique that sold recycled leather bags. Kind of place Riley used to make fun of, before she started dressing like the women who shopped there. The parking lot was half full, brunch crowd bustling in and out. I pulled into a spot and scanned the front patio. That's when I saw her. She wasn't inside with a group of girlfriends. She was standing outside, maybe 20 feet from the front door, talking to someone. A man. Tall, fit, in a charcoal jacket, with one of those lazy confident stances that made you wonder what exactly he'd earned the right to be so relaxed about. His back was to me, but Riley faced him, and that was enough. She was smiling. Not a polite smile. Not a brunch with friends smile. It was the kind of smile you save for someone you want to impress. Her eyes lit up. Her posture shifted forward. Shoulders leaning in like gravity was pulling her toward him. And when he brushed her wrist with the back of his hand, she didn't flinch. She smiled wider. Felt like a punch. I sat there for a second in the driver's seat, sunglasses in my hand, completely still, like my body was trying to decide whether to follow the plan or abandon it. I should have left. I should have driven home and pretended I hadn't seen anything. But something told me if I didn't face it now, it would only haunt me worse later. So I got out of the car. I took slow steps toward them, trying not to make a scene, but Riley caught sight of me before I reached the sidewalk. Her face changed in an instant. She froze mid-sentence. Her body stiffened, hands pulling back like she'd touched a hot stove. The smile disappeared. In its place, something cold and calculating flickered behind her eyes. Not guilt, not surprise, more like damage control. "Jordan?" she called out, voice too high-pitched, too strained to be casual. The guy beside her stepped slightly to the side, unsure whether to stay or go. I didn't acknowledge him. I just looked at Riley and held out her sunglasses. "You forgot these." Her hand trembled slightly as she took them. She forced a smile, but it was thin, almost painful. "I was going to text you," she said quickly. "I didn't realize until I was halfway here." "Yeah," I replied. "Figured I'd save you the trip back." She tucked the sunglasses into her purse, eyes flicking to the guy beside her, then back to me. This is Colin, from my workout group." Colin gave a small nod. I didn't nod back. I didn't say a word to him. I kept my eyes on Riley. "I thought you were having brunch with the girls?" I asked, quiet but direct. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. Then, "They're inside. We were just talking about a stretching program he does. He's a trainer." "Right," I said. She hated long explanations. Whenever I caught her in even the smallest white lie, saying she didn't finish the wine when she had, she'd spiral into a ramble. That's how I knew. And there it was, the ramble. "He's helped some of the girls with flexibility, and I told him I'd ask about his rates. He's thinking of starting a side business. Just wanted to bounce a few ideas around before we all sat down." I just nodded. Slowly. "You good?" I asked. She blinked. "What? You seem a little thrown off." "I'm fine," she said too quickly. "Just didn't expect you, that's all." I looked at Colin one last time. He shifted his weight, awkward now, eyes on the ground. He was good-looking. The kind of good-looking that makes sense of the new lingerie I'd never seen on her. The kind of good-looking that explains why my wife had started going on 6:30 a.m. runs with a bone-dry water bottle. Anyway, I said, stepping back. Didn't mean to interrupt. Just figured you might want these. Thanks, she said again, her voice brittle. And that was it. I turned and walked back to my car. No yelling. No confrontation. No dramatic scene. But inside, something was cracking. A hairline fracture running down the center of what I thought was stable. When I looked back in the rearview mirror, she was still standing in the same spot. Frozen. Not waving goodbye. Not texting. Just staring after me, jaw clenched. I didn't go home right away. I drove around for a bit, no destination, just windows down and music off, trying to hear my own thoughts, trying to make sense of what I had just seen. And that's the thing, I didn't even catch them doing anything. No kiss, no touch, just that energy between them, thick and unmistakable. You don't fake chemistry like that. You don't stand that close to someone, smile that way, unless something's already started. It wasn't what I saw that hurt. It was what she didn't say, what she didn't do. She didn't run after me. She didn't explain. She didn't even seem afraid that I had caught her. She was annoyed, as if I was the one in the wrong, like I had invaded something private that didn't concern me. That moment stuck with me more than any hypothetical confession ever could. By the time I got home, the sunglasses were already forgotten. The real issue had taken root, deep and quiet. I kept playing it over in my head. The touch, the smile, the flinch, the absence of panic. And somewhere in all that silence, I realized this wasn't the start of something. It was the middle, and I had no idea how far back the beginning really was. After that Sunday, things didn't explode. They didn't fall apart in some dramatic, made-for-TV way. They just shifted, quietly, like furniture you didn't realize had been moved until you tripped over it in the dark. Riley came home that afternoon acting like everything was normal. I was already on the couch pretending to scroll my phone when she walked in. She placed the sunglasses on the entry table, then sat down across from me like she hadn't just been caught with someone else's attention tangled around her. "How was your day?" she asked, eyes on her phone. "Uneventful." She nodded. "Brunch was nice. Everyone's obsessed with this gluten-free French toast." Everyone, right? She didn't mention Colin. Not even in passing. And I didn't bring it up either, not because I believed her, but because I didn't trust myself to handle her response. I wasn't ready for gaslighting. Wasn't ready to be told I'd misread everything I saw with my own eyes. But the damage was done. The image of her smiling at him was lodged in my mind like a splinter under the skin. And once you notice one splinter, you start looking for others. And I found them. First was her phone. Riley had always been somewhat private, but lately, it was glued to her hand like an extension of her body. Bathroom, phone, shower, wrapped in a towel, still clutching it. She'd never done that before. Not even when she was binging crime podcasts and texting her sisters nonstop. Now it was silent. No buzzes, no rings, no previews on the lock screen. Notifications were hidden. Everything was password protected. I watched her one night as she typed it in, for digits. Fast. I didn't get the full sequence, but I saw the way her thumb hovered before each tap. Like she was rehearsing it in her head. Like she couldn't afford a mistake. Then there was the running. Riley had never been a runner. She liked yoga, Pilates, group classes where the music was loud enough to drown out your thoughts. But somewhere in the last 2 months, she became a runner. Started waking up before sunrise, lacing up spotless shoes, and heading out for 5 to 6 miles at a time. When she'd come home, she didn't look flushed. Her water bottle was always full, her shirt barely damp. But her hair? It was always styled. "Helps clear my head," she'd say, brushing past me to hit the shower. Running's therapeutic. Therapy wasn't what she smelled like. It was perfume. Subtle, expensive. Not her usual citrusy stuff. This had musk in it. Warm and asterisk mate, confident. The kind of scent that lingered not by accident but by design. Her wardrobe changed, too. Slowly at first new sports bras, leggings from boutique brands. Then came heels I never saw her wear, a deep red dress with tags still on it, a matching black lace set that I noticed one morning, then never saw again. Not in the laundry, not in the drawers, not on her. "You're glowing lately," I said once, watching her apply lip gloss in the hallway mirror before a meeting. She smiled without looking at me. "Guess the supplements are working." I nodded, saying nothing. But inside, I felt it growing, this hollow pit where doubt had started to live. I didn't want to be that guy. The paranoid husband digging through drawers. The man checking receipts and **TS for clues. But something had changed, and the evidence was too quiet to ignore. I started watching her patterns. She'd come home late from work, later than usual, with excuses so vague they sounded like copy-paste templates. Crazy day. That quarterly push is **ling me. Had to jump on a call with the Singapore team. I stayed back to help Jenna finish a deck. Always someone. Always something. But the timelines didn't add up. She'd leave for work looking one way, minimal makeup, hair in a loose bun. She'd come home glowing. Glossed lips, mascara perfectly intact. That same warm scent trailing behind her as she walked by like I was furniture. And then, one night, I noticed the texts. She was in the kitchen, and I caught a glimpse of her phone lighting up on the counter. Just initials, C. A message preview that disappeared too fast. She picked it up so quickly it was almost a reflex. Held it against her chest. Tapped the screen with practiced urgency. I asked, casually, "Something urgent?" "No, just a work thing," she replied, flipping it over screen down. That's when I knew. Not the full truth, but enough. The way you know a storm is coming before it breaks. The air thickens. The wind changes. Something shifts. I started making notes. Quietly. In a small notebook I kept in the back of my closet, behind a stack of old sneakers. March 12th. Left for brunch alone. Caught her outside cafe with tall man. No friends in sight. She froze. Lied about who he was. Didn't bring it up again. March 14th, phone on her during shower. Notifications hidden. Password changed. Possible C contact. Texted during dinner prep. March 18th, run at 6 a.m. Came back with full water bottle. Hair looked styled. New perfume still strong. March 21st, left for work in hoodie. Came home in blazer and heels. Said she had a client lunch. Never mentioned before. The lies weren't just slipping out. They were stacking up. I'd lie awake at night, listening to her breathe. She always fell asleep fast. Used to fall asleep curled toward me. Lately, she stayed on her side, facing away. Even in sleep, there was distance. We stopped touching. The kisses, if they happened, were more like checkpoints. Greetings you'd give a coworker in the hallway. Mechanical, polite. But gone was the weight, the warmth, the feeling. I tested it once. Walked up behind her in the kitchen. Wrapped my arms around her waist like I used to. She flinched. "Whoa," she said, laughing, stepping out of my arms. "You scared me." I let my hands drop. "Just saying hi." "You're weird today," she replied, opening the fridge. She never said it back. Not "I love you." Not even "hey." She just moved away like my presence had become an interruption. I started replaying our arguments in my head. The small fights. The ones I thought were just friction. "You never trust me," she'd said once when I asked why she always hid her screen. "It's not hiding, it's privacy. You're so paranoid." But I wasn't. Not anymore. I was awake. A man peeling back layers that used to feel safe and realizing they were hollow. One night, she left her Apple Watch charging in the bathroom. I checked the fitness data. No run that morning. Just a stationary hour at 6 a.m. GPS wasn't logged. Heart rate barely moved. She never ran. She just left. That same night, I heard her whispering into her phone around midnight. I don't know if she thought I was asleep or gone, but I caught one line as I passed the hallway. "I hate how complicated it's getting." Then silence. I didn't sleep that night. It wasn't just betrayal, it was erasure. She was rewriting our life without me, line by line, excuse by excuse. And the more I looked, the more I saw how far back it went. She had started slipping away long before the cafe, long before Colin, maybe even before I noticed the silence in her smile. Maybe the real betrayal wasn't in that moment outside the restaurant. Maybe it was in all the days leading up to it, when she stopped choosing me one decision at a time. And I hadn't even realized I was already alone. Some people say when you know, that the body absorbs truth faster than the brain does. That something in your chest tightens when reality is standing right in front of you, daring you to look it in the eye. For me, that moment came on a rainy Saturday. It was supposed to be Riley's wellness weekend. She'd mentioned it offhandedly during dinner earlier in the week. Something about a 2-day retreat in Maple Ridge. Yoga, breathwork, journaling. A hotel upstate where phones were discouraged, and everything had names like detox or soul clarity. I nodded, said it sounded nice. Even helped her pack a few essentials: towel, travel size cleanser, essential oils. Played the role. Smiled when she said, "I might not have great signal, so don't worry if I don't text much." It was all so cleanly scripted. But I already knew. See, earlier that week, while reorganizing the hallway drawers, I came across the old GPS tag Riley had attached to her keys back when she kept losing them. A small, white disc the size of a quarter. She hadn't used it in over a year, but it was still synced to our shared app. And when I opened it, I saw the blinking dot. It wasn't in Maple Ridge. It was in a dusty town 2 hours west, pinned to a roadside, and that had no website, no spa, no retreats. Just a red neon sign that buzzed vacancy, and a gravel lot surrounded by fields of nothing. I didn't text. I didn't call. I didn't even think. I just drove. The entire ride, my hands stayed at 10 and 2, white-knuckled. The radio was off. My thoughts weren't screaming, they were focused. The kind of clarity that feels surgical. Not anger, not heartbreak, just precision. It was late afternoon when I pulled into the lot of the Woodridge Motor Inn. The clouds were thick above, light rain spitting against the windshield like the sky didn't have the energy to commit to a real storm. IK** led the engine and sat still, watching the second-floor balconies. Room 114. The GPS showed it clearly. I spotted it on the far side, a flickering porch light above it. Door pulled in but not fully closed. Cracked. Just enough. My legs felt heavy as I stepped out. Each footstep across the gravel felt louder than it should have. When I reached the door, I didn't knock. I didn't call her name. I didn't push it open either. I just looked. Inside, the curtain was half drawn. I could see part of the bed. Riley was sitting on the edge, her legs crossed, wearing a hotel robe, white, standard issue. Her hair was damp, curling slightly at the ends. There was an opened wine bottle on the nightstand, 2 glasses, one half full in her hand. And across from her, facing the window I was peering through, was him. Colin. Same jacket. Same smirk. Same casual confidence, like this wasn't borrowed time, like this was his space, his moment. His towel was slung around his neck. His shirt off. He said something that made her laugh. The kind of laugh that didn't belong to the woman I lived with. It was lighter, easier, like he hadn't just stolen something from someone else, like she hadn't just handed it over. And then she reached out, her hand resting on his knee. I turned before I saw anything else. Didn't need more. Didn't need nudity or kissing or explicit confirmation. That touch was enough. That comfort, that Macy, that absence of hesitation, that was the truth. The moment of stillness between them said more than any confrontation ever could. I walked back to the car in silence. Drove half the way home without remembering to turn the wipers on. Somewhere along the highway, I pulled into a gas station and sat there for 20 minutes without moving. Not crying. Not yelling. Just breathing. Processing. Watching the numbers on the pump reset again and again. When I got home, the lights were off. The house was empty. Still warm from the heater she probably set before leaving. Her mug was still in the sink, the one that said "but first, coffee." I rinsed it out slowly, then placed it upside down on the rack. That night, I didn't sleep in our bed. I lay on the living room couch, staring at the ceiling like it had answers. the wine stain on the rug from our anniversary dinner, the chip in the coffee table from when we tried to assemble IKEA furniture without reading the manual. Every detail in that room had history, and suddenly none of it felt safe. The next morning, she came home. It was almost laughable. How casually she walked through the door, hair up, duffel bag over her shoulder, dressed in leggings and a loose hoodie, as if she'd just left a meditation circle. "Hey babe," she called from the hallway. "Missed you." I stayed at the sink, washing a plate I didn't need to wash. "How was it?" I asked without turning. She walked up behind me and wrapped her arms around my waist. I flinched. "Tiring," she said, "but amazing. I feel like lighter, you know?" I dried my hands. "Yeah, you look rested." She nodded, kissed my shoulder, then went upstairs. I followed slowly. Her phone buzzed once on the counter. The screen lit up. "See, let me know if you made it home okay." I turned it face down. She spent the rest of the day in loungewear, watched a baking show, made herself tea. She never once mentioned the motel, never once mentioned Colin. And when I asked if her retreat had helped, she smiled and said, "I think I'm starting to feel like myself again." That night, in bed, she reached for my hand. I let her take it, but my fingers didn't close around hers, because something had broken. Not loud, not messy, just final. And I don't know what stunned me more, that she had betrayed me, or that she believed I'd never notice. It's strange how betrayal doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes it slips in quietly, settles into your furniture, your routines, your breathing. That was how it felt after the motel, after Colin, after I saw Riley in that robe, laughing like she hadn't just rewritten the entire foundation of our marriage behind a half-closed door. When she came home, everything looked normal. The lights were on. Her slippers were by the front door. She hung up her jacket, kissed me on the cheek, and poured herself a glass of water like she hadn't just spent the weekend in someone else's bed. I studied her as she moved, how casual her body was, how easy her smile came, how she tilted her head when she asked if I wanted to order sushi or cook something healthy. I told her I wasn't hungry. That night, we watched an episode of the same show we'd been following for months. I couldn't tell you what happened in it. I was too focused on the way she sat, one leg tucked under her, scrolling her phone during every scene. She wasn't watching the show. She was just waiting for it to end. When we went to bed, she fell asleep before me. I stared at the ceiling for what felt like hours. Every breath she took beside me was steady, peaceful, but I could barely keep my own even. My thoughts twisted like wires, questions with no answers, memories with no meaning. I'd wake up at 3 a.m., look over at her sleeping face, and wonder if she was dreaming of him. The next day, she made pancakes. "I'm craving something sweet," she said, flipping the batter in a pan like we were in a commercial. I watched her from the doorway, arms crossed. Big energy for someone who just came back from a relaxing weekend. She laughed. "I don't know. Maybe I'm turning a corner." I nodded. That was her new thing. Turning corners. Moving forward. Reinvention. Like she was updating her operating system while I was still stuck trying to understand how the previous version failed. For days after that, I didn't bring up what I saw. Not because I forgave her. Not even because I was unsure. But because I wanted to see her. I wanted to observe the way she operated, knowing she cheated and thinking I didn't know. It was like living with a stranger who wore my wife's skin. And Riley played the part well. She asked about my day. She made a grocery list. She even suggested we take a weekend trip. Just the two of us, like old times. I told her I had work. She pouted, kissed my forehead, and said maybe next month. But under all that, she was gone. The int asterisk Macy was dead. She didn't notice how quiet I'd become. How I stopped initiating touch. How I stopped asking questions about her work, her workouts, her life. I became a roommate who paid the bills and answered in one-word sentences. And she didn't push. She seemed relieved, if anything. Like less effort from me meant more space for her to breathe. I started journaling again. I hadn't done it in years, not since college. But I needed somewhere to put the weight. Every night I wrote down what I saw, what I felt, what I didn't say. I logged everything. Times she left the house, calls she took in the hallway, the texts she smiled at but never shared. And always that name, C. C was everywhere. One night, I pretended to fall asleep early. She stayed downstairs. I crept halfway down the stairs and listened. Soft laughter. The tone of someone who wasn't performing. Her voice took on a melody it didn't have with me anymore. A murmur, then, "I miss you too." My stomach dropped. I went back upstairs and laid in bed staring at the ceiling again. Eventually, I heard her come up, slide into bed, sigh like she just put something heavy down. Her back was to me. She was used to the silence now. The next morning, she was back to performative normal. She made toast and eggs, asked if I needed anything dry cleaned, told me her friend Jess had a birthday dinner Thursday and she might be out late. She didn't ask if I wanted to come. She didn't ask if I cared. And I didn't answer. I just watched. And that was the haunting part. Not the betrayal itself. Not even the affair. It was the fact that nothing changed. Life kept moving, unchanged on the surface. We still had coffee pods and clean laundry. Still made small talk about headlines and weather. Still posted vacation throwbacks on Instagram like we were a couple that mattered. But beneath it, the rot had already taken root. We were ghosts. She was pretending not to be cheating. And I was pretending not to know. I started noticing the absences more than the presence. Her side of the bed untouched when I woke up at 6. The meetings that took too long. The gym bag that never seemed to contain actual gym clothes. I checked the GPS again. The tag was still in her purse. She'd forgotten it existed. Some days it pinged from her office. Other days it showed up at random intersections, places with no business hours. Once it stayed in the same apartment complex parking lot for over 3 hours. I looked it up, rental property. Short-term lease options. Colin had a place. I never confronted her. I thought about it. Rehearsed it. In the shower. In the car. In the mirror. But every time I imagined the conversation, it ended the same way. With her turning it on me. "You followed me? You spied on me? Is this who you are now?" And honestly, I didn't have the energy to argue. I didn't want a confession. I didn't want to fight. What I wanted was realness. A moment where she looked me in the eye and admitted what we both already knew. But Riley wasn't built for that. She was built for reinvention, for image control, for curated captions and morning affirmations. Admitting failure wasn't her language. So I let the silence do the talking. She gave me her body, but not her presence. I gave her the benefit of the doubt, but not my heart. I started sleeping in the guest room more. "Sorry, I couldn't sleep," I'd say. She stopped asking why. I started eating dinner before she got home. Grabbed a bite while working. She nodded. "No worries." I stopped saying, "I love you." She never noticed. And through it all, I realized something. She was already gone. Her loyalty had walked out the door long before her luggage ever would. Her affection, her honesty, herself, they belonged to someone else now. Maybe not Colin. Maybe not anyone specific. But definitely not me. One night, I opened the fridge to grab a bottle of water and found a note stuck to a Tupperware container. "Made extra for you. Love." The heart at the end used to mean something. That night, it just looked like punctuation. I stared at it for a long time. Then I threw the container away. Riley was asleep when I walked past the bedroom. Her face peaceful. Content. She had no idea I'd been watching her fade out of this marriage. Inch by inch. She had no idea how close I was to letting go completely. And the scariest part? She wouldn't even notice when I did. I didn't plan some grand escape. There was no loud goodbye. No shouting match in the hallway. No teary confrontation under dim kitchen lights. It was quieter than that. Almost surgical. A cut so clean it barely bled. I just left. It started with a list. One evening, after Riley went upstairs for a long shower, her usual wind-down routine, that now stretched close to an hour, I opened the Notes app on my phone and titled a new entry, "Things to Take." It was mostly essentials. Charger. passport, my old worn hoodie, the wristwatch my dad gave me the day I graduated college, a few notebooks. I didn't want to empty drawers or make a scene. I just wanted to be gone. The next afternoon, I toured a short-term rental 2 towns over. A 1-bedroom tucked above a closed-down bakery, small enough that I could walk from one side to the other in under 20 steps. But it was clean, quiet, anonymous. The man showing the place asked if I needed a move-in date. Tomorrow, I said. Back at home, everything felt strangely heavier. The walls, the carpet, the air. Even Riley's voice when she answered a FaceTime call in the other room. It all pressed down like the house itself knew what was coming. I waited until she was distracted, folding laundry in the bedroom, earbuds in, some self-help podcast playing at full volume. I went to the garage and pulled out a single suitcase. It was old, one broken, but it would hold what I needed. Clothes, a laptop, toothbrush, deodorant. That was it. Everything else could stay. At some point, I paused in front of the bookshelf. A row of photo albums sat untouched on the bottom shelf. Dusty. Forgotten. Our wedding was in the first one. A day that felt like a lifetime ago. I pulled it out, flipped through a few pages. Us smiling under a canopy of string lights. Riley laughing mid-bite during the cake smash. A picture of her clutching my hand like she'd never let go. I closed the album and carried it to the kitchen. It deserved to be seen one last time. Then came the ring. I slipped it off without ceremony. My finger felt cold, unfamiliar. I placed it gently on the table next to the album. Followed it with the house key. Silver, slightly bent, still warm from being in my pocket all these years. 3 objects. That was all it took to represent everything we used to be. When I zipped up the suitcase and headed downstairs, I expected to feel something. Sadness, maybe. Panic. But all I felt was stillness. Not peace. Not yet. But stillness. Like my body had finally stopped resisting what my heart already knew. Riley didn't hear me leave. She was upstairs, laughing at something through her headphones. I didn't slam the door. Didn't leave a note. I didn't need to. The table would speak for me. Outside, the air felt sharper than usual. I loaded the suitcase into my trunk, started the engine, and backed out of the driveway with my headlights off. I didn't look at the house again. Not even once. The drive to the rental was quiet. No music. No podcasts. Just the sound of tires over pavement and my own breathing trying to steady itself. When I arrived, the landlord had left the key under a fake rock. Inside, the place smelled like new paint and lemon-scented cleaner. A twin bed, a desk, a microwave, nothing more. I dropped the suitcase in the corner and sat on the edge of the mattress. And I waited. I waited for grief, for doubt, for guilt. But what came instead was silence. Thick, complete, unfamiliar silence. It didn't accuse me. It didn't beg me to go back. It didn't try to dress the wound. It just let me breathe. That first night, I barely slept. I laid there thinking about the last few months. About all the times Riley lied and made me feel crazy for noticing. About the man I used to be before I started second-guessing everything. About the person I might become now. I thought about her walking downstairs and seeing what I left. Would she cry? Would she feel anything? Or would she just pack it all away like a failed product launch? The next morning, I made coffee. Instant. Bitter. But mine. I stared at the empty walls, the single chair, the echo in the kitchen when I closed a cabinet door. And then I sat down and wrote in my journal. Day 1. I am alone. And for the first time, I don't feel lonely. I feel real. I feel clear. Later that afternoon, my phone lit up. Riley. I didn't answer. A minute later, a voicemail. Then a text. Where are you? Another. Please call me. Then, did something happen? She hadn't seen the table yet. I waited. Around 6 p.m. A final message came through. Just one line. You left. I didn't reply. That night, I turned my phone off for the first time in years. The next day, I drove to a strip mall on the edge of town and bought a prepaid SIM card. I needed clean air, no threads, no shared accounts, No ghost contacts floating through my notifications. Back at the apartment, I unpacked slowly. Hung up the few shirts I brought. Organized my notebooks by date. I even bought a small plant and placed it on the windowsill. I told myself, if it dies, it dies. But at least it's mine. On day 3, I finally told someone. My brother. He called as soon as I sent the message. Wait, you left? Like actually left? Yeah. There was a long pause. Then he said, I'm proud of you, man. That hit harder than I expected. I hadn't realized how much I needed someone to see me. That week, Riley emailed. She sent a letter, not dramatic, not angry. Just words. I don't know where you are or what made you go, but I feel it. I feel the absence. I feel the silence. And I know I created it. I don't know how to fix something I never realized I broke. I didn't respond. She followed it up with a message about joint accounts. Offered to take herself off. Said she'd cover next month's utilities if I needed space to figure things out. It was the most generous she'd been in months. It also wasn't enough. I spent my evenings walking empty streets, earbuds in, no music playing, just the illusion of distraction. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even sad. I was rebuilding, one routine at a time. I found a small diner down the block with a quiet corner booth. The waitress never asked why I looked so tired. Just kept the coffee full and let me sit as long as I wanted. Her name was Lacey. She called everyone Han and wore a different shade of glitter eyeshadow every day. She never asked questions, and I never offered answers. Sometimes healing looks like that. Just a cup of coffee in silence. On day 10, I called a therapist. It felt strange dialing the number, like I was reporting a crime I couldn't prove. But the voice on the other end was kind. He said we could start slow. We did. We talked about what it means to feel invisible in your own marriage. What it does to your sense of reality when someone erases you, one white lie at a time. By week 3, I didn't check my old phone anymore. It just sat there, turned off in a drawer, like an artifact from a different life. And I knew if I ever turned it back on, it would be because I was ready to bury the past for good. But I wasn't there yet. For now, it was enough to have my own space, my own breath, my own voice, no longer echoing inside someone else's silence. And that was the beginning of something new. Not better, not worse, just mine. She texted, then called, then showed up. Asking for forgiveness, not for me, but to quiet her own guilt. Said she'd fixed the banking error, sent a letter, even offered money in my name. I saw it all for what it was. Damage control. Not love. Not remorse. Just cleanup. I didn't answer her texts. Didn't need closure. I had peace. And silence was the loudest boundary I could draw. 2 years later, I saw her, bookstore downtown. She froze when our eyes met, then turned and left without a word. I didn't chase. I didn't feel anything. No rage, no longing. That night, I wrote, "You didn't lose her. You found yourself." A letter came a week later, no return address. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. That chapter was closed. I had rebuilt. And in that quiet, I was whole again.